Have you noticed how some full-time employees are able to simultaneously balance having a side hustle as an influencer? How do they do it? And what about the folks who quit their 9-to-5 and lean into their role as an influencer and a full-time creator? Does that sound frightening to you? Maybe just a little bit exciting? Because the truth is, the creator economy is booming, and there's ample room for influencers, particularly B2B influencers, whether they're full-time or working on the side. So whether you're a budding creator or a CEO who wants to support and retain their employees turned influencers, stay tuned, because that's what we're covering in today's episode of Partnership Unpacked. This is Partnership Unpacked, your go-to guide to growing your business through partnerships quickly. I'm your host, Mike Alton, and each episode unpacks the winning strategies and latest trends from influencer marketing to brand partnerships and ideas that you can apply to your own business to grow exponentially. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Partnership Unpacked, where I selfishly use this time to pick the brains of experts at strategic partnerships, channel programs, affiliates, influencer marketing, and relationship building. Oh, and you get to learn too. Subscribe to learn how you can amplify your growth strategy with a solid takeaway every episode from partnership experts and influencers in the industry. And today's going to be interesting. On the one hand, you've got people like me who've been working full-time for the same company. I'm now celebrating 5 years working for Agorapulse as head of strategic partnerships. And throughout that entire time, I've kept and developed my personal brand and content at the social media hat. On the other hand, you've got employees who want to strike off as full-time influencers and leave the safety net of a regular paycheck behind. Both scenarios can be frightening and stressful, but it helps to talk to people who've been in those situations and get their insights. So that's exactly what our guest today, Norman Farrar, is going to help with. Norm is currently an entrepreneur who started his own marketing agency and has worked with major brands, Fortune 500 companies. And he's now leaned into podcasting and he's building up his personal brand as an influencer, even using platforms like TikTok. How to get there? What challenges did he face? Let's find out. Hey, Norm, welcome to the show.
This is so professional, man.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. I've worked hard to kind of polish how I do these shows, so I appreciate that feedback. Let's start way back in time. Let's go back to your most recent, however far back that is, full-time job. What was that you were doing and what made you decide to strike off on your own and be an entrepreneur?
I've always, ever since high school, had my own business. Except when I first came out of college, I was in the reserve for a couple of years. So other than that, I pretty much worked for myself the whole time.
Got it. All right. So you were with the reserves. Okay. Very cool. What kind of work did you do initially when you were in school and just kind of trying to do your own thing?
Let's see. High school, my first incorporated company was a rock promotion company. I got together with 4 friends and started that. Then I went through school for cinematography and started a film company with a buddy of mine at school and started working for a government agency, which helped pay our tuition, which was pretty nice. Then right after that, let's skip a few because there's a lot of small things that happened, but ended up getting involved and starting a promotional marketing company, which is the company that creates the coffee mugs, the keychains. It really is kind of a commodity. You get a big pen or you get a mug. How do you make more than the guy beside you or the person beside you? And so my partner and I ended up coming up with creating value. Well, first of all, creating a vertical integrated model, which meant we bought the embroiderer, we bought the screener, we bought a courier company, we bought a fulfillment center, and we wanted to figure out how we can make more margin. And everything came around perceived value. So how do you make perceived value out of a mug? Well, you package it in a really nice box, nice and clean. The big pen, same thing. A t-shirt, you put your own label in, you polybag it, you'd have a logo on it, you put it in white boxes with your name on it. And what we found is that people ended up paying about 20 to 30% more for the exact same big pen. So kind of carried that on. And by the way, as that grew, we found another problem that occurred, hypergrowth. All these Fortune 500 companies really wanted to deal with us because we all of our orders were on time every time. And that's what they wanted. They didn't care if they paid more, is if they got on time. So perceived value was everything. And what that led to was all these extra sales. How do you handle them when you're working 25 hours a day? So looking at a book that just came out back in 95, it was E-Myth, and understanding systems and automation and being able to scale a company and how to scale a company. So all of those things now are with everything and anything that I touch. So systems and automation, and then perceived value and the ability to grow like vertically wide.
That's so interesting because not only are you a serial entrepreneur, technically, right? But you also mentioned a type of partnerships that we don't often talk about on this show, and that's acquiring, because it's not something just anybody can do. But that is a very true and legitimate way to grow the business through partnerships, is acquiring other businesses that can fill the gaps in what you can do and help between you and that other business that you're acquiring fill a need and bring to market a unique proposition. So that's fascinating. What are some of the other challenges that you had early on in your career, particularly when it comes to, building up these businesses?
Well, especially the promotional marketing company. And I have to explain that the typical promotional marketing company throughout North America back at that time had $300,000 worth of revenue. There were two people and there was 23% gross margin. And that didn't cut it for me and my partner. So anyways, we had to find a different way of doing this. The problem was, for us to do this, we had no cash. We were trying to grow. We knew what we wanted to achieve, but we had a couple of people that we've been working with over the years that knew that whatever we said, we did. And one of them was Hershey's. So we had our initial order with Hershey's for a bunch of different items, but we had no cash. And we told them that we had no cash. And whoever the brand manager was at the time ended up giving us our first break by giving us cash flow we needed, which was paid up front, cash. Like we got, I think it was $15,000 up front that allowed us to not only buy their product, but to start working on 2 or 3 other orders. So cash flow is the first hurdle that I think every entrepreneur has. And if you don't have a good manager, or if you don't understand, and maybe going into the battle, you have enough cash flow. But what happens if you have a home run? You won't have the cash flow to cover yourself. And especially nowadays online, like you have to have that cash flow to, first of all, cover off your landed costs, cover off your second and third orders possibly, especially if they're coming out of, let's say, China. Then you've got all your marketing costs. You've got all these costs that a lot of people don't take into consideration. So that would be probably hurdle number one. Cash flow, more cash flow. So that was the biggest thing. The second thing back in those days was this new concept that we never heard of before and is even a bigger hurdle nowadays. That's voicemail. When I first started getting into sales, I'd meet people at trade shows. I would call them and they would pick up the phone and they would either say no or, yeah, I'm interested. So it was really interesting learning the technique of leaving a message on voicemail. And if, like anything, like a well-crafted email, if you didn't have that technique down, you either came off as a goof, like just a sleazeball, a goof, or not knowing what you talked about. And people wouldn't return your calls. So it was interesting how everybody was, rushing, trying to figure out the magic of the script, just like right now, people are trying to figure out ChatGPT. How can you use it? How can you manipulate it? How can you use it to your benefit? And the people that get out there, the innovators, they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to leverage everything. And everybody else is just going to follow along. They'll make money, but they just won't be these innovators out there creating all these strategic partnerships.
That's so true. It's something I've seen time and again when there's a new social network that comes out, like Blab and Clubhouse and Vine. There was a immediate rush of folks who took the time to learn those platforms and then turned that knowledge into product, skill, something along those lines. And I love that you mentioned cash flow. A lot of people watching and listening are marketing agency CEOs and CMOs, and that's always a big concern as they're growing. We've got thousands of agencies that are customers of ours at Agorapulse, and their number one issue is always, how do I grow and scale my agency? But we find that changes with the size of the agency. Small, like boutique solopreneur agencies, they're just looking for the next client. But as they grow, as they get bigger, they're looking for their recurring revenue. They want those recurring retainers, and now churn becomes an issue because they want to maintain cash flow. So if you're listening and I just described a real problem for you, make sure you subscribe, because in a future episode, we're going to have Rachel from Visita, who is their ambassador to agencies, come and talk to us specifically about churn. So you're not going to want to miss that episode. But now, Norm, I want you to share a little bit more, because you've kind of just painted around the edges of what you're doing today. But I'd love for you to tell us exactly what it is that you do today with Amazon, because I've found recently that ecosystem is just massive. It's crazy. For those of us who just buy stuff from Amazon, we don't really think about all the things that are happening behind the scenes with other businesses and other players. Tell us what you do.
Okay, so really briefly, I've got a couple of different companies that work on Amazon, Walmart. One is a sourcing company, so it's called Honu Worldwide. It's a sourcing company that solves the headache of supply chain management. We take sort of medium and larger companies and we control their supply chain management. For smaller companies, we'll do their sourcing, we'll store their product, we have a warehouse, and take care of the logistics for them. Another area where we specialize are working with people and finding out whether they're applying the right tariff codes. You won't believe how much money you can save with a tariff code. If you have the wrong tariff code, you could be being charged a ton of extra money when you could be charged very little. And also within that company, it's a product innovation company. So you can't have a Me Too product on Amazon anymore. It's got to be innovative, and that's what the company does. On the other side, again, vertical integration carried over from the promo company. It's getting brands onto Amazon. You can either work with us a la carte, or we manage your whole brand. And that's right from start to finish, building the brand consistency, getting the product on Amazon, getting the packaging done properly and retail ready, by the way, which is retail is not dead. Some people think it smells funny, but it's not dead. It's actually very popular still. And anyways, getting them on Amazon, product listing, product optimization, PPC, even doing their customer service. You don't want to be stuck as a one-legged stool. So we also carry over to Walmart, even over to Shopify. So we take care of all of your headaches. And it's exactly like I was talking about before, going out, either strategic partnering or buying the companies and making sure that if you're trying to do it all yourself, you'll probably never become an expert at anything. But if you acquire the right people and the right companies, then you can do this. And that's what we've tried to do. So that's what we're doing for Amazon and Walmart and Shopify right now, and even a bunch of retailers.
Fantastic. So you've got two agencies that are highly focused on helping e-commerce brands, but lately you've been focusing on growing your own audience as an influencer. Tell us about that. How's that going? And what are you doing?
Okay. So last year, I have a podcast called Lunch with Norm. It's primarily for Amazon e-com sellers, just how to become better online sellers. So during a trip to Mexico, one of the biggest influencers in the space was held over at Mexico with me. And so I said, well, I wish I could be an influencer like you. She said, you are. And I said, no. You've got millions of people following you. Like I have Amazon sellers following me. She goes, you could be an influencer. Look you've got a beard. You can go out there. You're unique. You already have those set of followers. So about 3 or 4 months later, my son challenged me on a podcast that, why don't you become a product influencer? And during the podcast, I said, well, how many followers do I have to get? And he says, 100,000. I started out with 0. So I said, okay, let's see what we could do. So anyway, we launched this thing called 0 to 100,000 follower challenge. I started with not really knowing anything about TikTok. The challenge was I had to learn these social media channels, learn the demographic of my audiences. And that's what I've been doing. So the challenge is I go on to my channel on TikTok, which is just Norm Farrar, and I tell people, I document 30 seconds to a minute a day, what I did right, wrong, and how Amazon sellers can benefit and how they should approach influencers, how you can become your own brand's influencer. And if you want to do a side hustle and make money, this is what you do. So there's all three of those kind of tied into it. So then I had to start creating social media channels, and I got approved for Amazon Live, their shoppable videos, TikTok, Facebook, got a Facebook page, Facebook group, just got it all, and created a deal page. So we went crazy. I built I've got a podcast studio that way. I've got a photography studio with 7 lights, 3 different cameras. I mean, we spent money on doing this right to make sure by December 31st, I have 100,000 followers. So the only part I was missing was product. And this is kind of the sacrifice I made to do this. And again, this isn't being monetized. I told anybody who was willing to listen that send me your product and I will do an Amazon Live with it if you're on Amazon. If not, we'll do whatever we can with you. We would create a shoppable video, put you on all our social, and put you on our deal site. Now, we created a hook on our deal site. If you sign up at Lunch with Norm Deals, you get a new deal every day, and they're heavily discounted. It's anywhere between 30 and 70% off, and then you get all the deals in the back end. And then these deals are also carried over to all the social media. So I am trying to become a product influencer. I'm building my brand, and hopefully December 31st, you'll see 101,000 people.
That is an admirable goal. I love it. Now, with the influencer work, the actual influencer work that you're doing, is that basically focused on Amazon, or would you say you're also leveraging some of the other platforms?
I'll take it where I can get it. Amazon, the reason Amazon Live is so popular right now is because people are hearing that Amazon does this. I mean, there are other areas that if I create this Amazon Live, you can take clips of this, or you can take stills and put it on your Amazon posts, which are going to get the brand. And this is where my expertise comes in. The brands should be using it to help build their own followers on Amazon, because Amazon wants to build brand communities. So I'll do it for Amazon. Walmart's got their own. I'm on a waiting list right now. They just started live. And wherever else we can find lives. If we find other platforms, we're going to do that. I've been really lucky. I've been working directly with TikTok on a couple of things. So I think they like this concept. And I've been able to say, hey, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? But really, there's no help. If I'm making a mess, when I did my first podcast, I can't even look at it. It's that bad. It is that bad.
I know.
And I think that's the same with my TikTok. Like, I'm looking at my TikTok going, oh gosh, these are horrible, and they're starting to get a little bit better and a little bit better. I'm an older guy. My hands trying to fit and edit and do all that TikTok stuff. But you know what? I get a kick out of it. It's a lot of fun. And I have to tell anybody who's out there, if you think becoming an influencer is easy, it is a job. I think you have to really come up. Like, the content is so important. Consistency is so important. And just being on top of the new trends all the time, you have to be able to do that. And education. I am signing up with different ways to learn. Like, I'm pretty good with digital marketing, but on the influencer side and on some of the newer content sides of things, I have to learn that. I have to learn better SEO techniques. I have to get my word out there. The branding, the personal branding. Okay, what is best for me? What are the color choices? What looks good with this beard? And is that the brand that I'm going to go with? And then you've got that demographic. Who is my demographic? There's lots of research, just like on Amazon. When you're researching a product, you've got to do proper competitive analysis. And I don't know about you, but do you know Rand Fishkin?
Very well.
Spark Toro.
Rand is amazing. Yeah. The brand, for those of you listening, Norm just mentioned this brand that Rand started. He was with Moz. He founded Moz, which is a search engine marketing giant in the industry. And then he went off and he started Spark Toro, which helps you understand your audience and where they're getting their information.
Very inexpensive. And I think he does a 6 to 8 minute tutorial. And after he explains it, you're off and running. And that's one of the key elements to how I understood my competitors and how I had to approach things. And then there were little things like understanding Facebook library. Okay, like let's see what my competitors are doing and why not just copy that? So there's a lot of interesting shortcuts here that if I didn't go and continue to learn, I would have been left behind. That 100,000, it would be for sure never 100,000. And by the way, I'm nowhere near it yet, but my goal is to, and this is another technique that I learned, is to help leverage the brands that I'm working using their existing customers. And how do you do that? Well, these are all things that I've learned how to do without the brand thinking I'm stealing anything, because that's the last thing you want, but already great repeat customers that love the brand, that the brand says, okay, I'll help you out. That's what I'm leveraging to get me to 100,000 followers. And then hopefully that starts to snowball because they start to see some old guy with a beard.
Right, which is just what we were talking about before we started, the actual recording, that, a lot of the things that you can do today, they will have cumulative effects, so that tactics that are just bringing you tens of followers will start to bring you hundreds of followers and then thousands of followers by the end of the year. So your growth chart, if we were charting how many new followers per day that you're adding, by December 31st of this year will look very different than February 15th of this year. And for those of you listening, Norman's mentioned his beard a couple of times. You got to look up to the podcast thumbnail image, because I'll have Norman's picture there and you can see this lavish long white beard that he's got going. But you mentioned working with partnerships, and I want to drill down into that, or working with brands. And I want to drill down into that a little bit, because I'd love for you to share how you're actually connecting with the brands today that you're building partnerships with.
There's a variety of different ways. One way is leveraging agencies. So I will literally contact an agency, say, this is what I'm doing. Can you connect me, or do you think that this is something that you'd like to be involved with? Now, this is a challenge for me. But for influencers or people who want to do this, it's very simple for you. People want, companies, brands want influencers. And for you to reach out and start talking to a brand, now you have to make sure that the brands that you're reaching out to fit your personality and vice versa. But if you're reaching out to a company and you suit their brand personality or their cultural personality, brand culture, then everything should be good. Everybody wants an influencer. The hard part is finding the influencer. So if you're contacting them and saying, hey, I'll do this, and let's say you're giving like a price. Right now, I can't give a price. I don't have those followers. I'm doing it for free. But if you're a nano influencer and you want to charge a few bucks, or maybe you just want the product, you can say that. You reach out to the brand. Go on LinkedIn, find out the brand manager, throw out a message to them. There's all different ways that you could reach out, but I'd probably start with different agencies, aggregators, people like that, like in the Amazon space. There's tons of aggregators out there. And especially if you want free product, there's a lot of ways that you could do that as you're growing up your following, and put out good content. Just make sure it's consistent with what the brand's looking for. The other thing is, what we're doing is we're putting out the word on social media. So we've got press releases. I write a press release every time I put out a brand. Now, I should mention I own a press release company. So that's one I didn't mention before. So I can do that. So when I get a brand, I can announce that I've got a partnership going with that brand. If you can do that, let's say that you have 3 or 4 or 5 different brands that come on in a week, you can do that very inexpensively. And that'll get the word out there. Usually, you'll get on to 400 to 500 different media outlets that should have the information on there about the brands. And you can also do that with content syndication. And just to give you just another example, if you write a blog article, publish it about the brands, and it could be the benefits of X, Y, and Z, and then you write a press release about that blog article, and you've got the links in there going back to the same spot, you're going to get the benefit of a syndicated press release and the syndicated blog article that's going to get you lots of SEO potential.
Fantastic. Love that. So now as you're thinking about the brands that you've been partnering with and where they've been coming from. What would you say would be your most successful channel? Where are you getting most of these brand partnerships from?
Women's beauty.
Women's beauty. Okay, so I said that it's a very open question, right? People can interpret however they want. So your interpretation was product channel, women's beauty. How interesting.
Yeah. Now, think of it this way. Okay, so you can go on, and this is a strategy. You can go on and have one TikTok channel. You can go on and have your TikTok channel, like me, just going on there and Lunch with Norm deal, LWN deals. You can go on to TikTok with I'm kind of a burly type guy. I usually drink out of my Harley mug. And so I thought of, why don't I do a women's review for guys? So what to buy your partner, spouses, and I'll do it. And so anyways, there's one. And then there's another one that I shouldn't even reveal, but I will to your audience. The Masked Reviewer, where I wear different facial toning masks. And nobody
I knew that was you.
Oh, did you? That is a fun one of mine. So anyways, I have different personalities for these channels and just seeing what's going to hit. And these are all done within the last month and just seeing which one's going to hit. But by far, when I talk on Amazon, the brand managers that come on or the owners come on and talk about women's beauty, and I ask the questions and I try the stuff on, those are the highest performing Amazon lives we have.
I love that you shared that. First, it obviously shows an element where we're not taking ourselves too seriously. We're willing to try on some women's beauty or do something that's a little out of the box, for the benefit of the audience, which is fantastic. I also love that what you're talking about is something, friend of the show, Drew Davis, who's a speaker, author of The Referable Speaker. He talks about this idea of fractals, and he's talking about it from the speaking perspective. You're talking about it from like an e-commerce, an influencer marketing perspective. It's the same idea where once you start to get into a specific niche, you keep drilling down into that niche. Like he's talking about, Andrew, like if you start speaking in front of real estate agents, now you start looking for more real estate agent and related industry events that you could speak to, because now you've developed that expertise. And in your case, you could continue to create more and more videos, right, in the women's beauty vertical and continue to really just explode in that fractal, as Drew would call it. Love it. That's fantastic. Now, folks, I want to share with you, we're talking with Norm Farrar about his most successful channels for partnerships. And I've got just one more key question that I want to ask Norm. But before I do, I've got a message from our CMO to Gorpulse about another channel that you should be thinking about.
It's the Arc de Triomphe. Can you imagine if you're in charge, if you're the CMO of marketing Paris? What are your main channels? Wow, there's the Arc de Triomphe. There's the Eiffel Tower. There's the Louvre. Those are your channels you're going to use to drive tourism dollars in. Okay, now, but you're not the CMO of Paris. In fact, you're the CMO of your company, product, service. So what are your main channels? So I'm going to guess there are things like pay-per-click, maybe trade shows, events, maybe content. Those are all pretty predictable, right? Let me ask you this question. Are you treating social media as a main channel? By the way, only 1.8% of you today measure social media and can prove an ROI in that investment. HubSpot and Gartner say social media is the #1 channel to invest in this year. Are you doing it? If not, I can tell you why. You're not doing it because you don't have the tools, you don't have the mentality, and that's okay. We've got you covered. You change the mentality, we'll give you the tool. Gorpulse tracks all the ROI for you. One place to manage all your social media activity, your #1 channel. Change your success. Treat social media as a channel, one CMO to another. My name is Daryl. I'm with the Gorpulse. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Norm, we've been talking about strategic partnerships. We've been talking about leveraging influencers, becoming influencers ourselves. And you shared with me over this whole time all these different businesses that you have, even to this day. How many businesses do you have now, technically? You've mentioned at least 3. I suspect you've got more that you're hiding.
Yeah, there's probably about 5 or 6.
Five or six. Okay, so he's got 5 or 6 businesses, folks. He's not sure he's got too many to count. So Norm, tell us, I'm really curious, what role has relationships played, not personal, but professional relationships played throughout this journey to help you get to where you are today?
Probably the most vital thing. Learned at a very early age, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Hear it all the time. It's absolutely the truth. My network is everything. And even when I go out, so it's interesting, when I spend the money to go to an event, and you can go to free events, but usually the quality of the people and the people that have that open mind that might be your next partner, you never know if they're going to be sitting beside you, but it is a completely different feel, breaking bread and getting to know people. And by the time I just was on a business cruise, and I think I walked off the cruise with about 2 or 3 new deals, possibly a new partner to consider or bring them in as a strategic partner. So you're finding good people. And for me, the only reason I have these companies is not that I'm running the companies. I have good people running the companies. They make all the decisions. I only find those good people and partner with them. So relationships is everything.
Love that answer. Love the story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I never, folks listening, you should know, I don't talk about what I'm going to talk about with these guests beforehand. I may show them the questions, but we don't have conversations. So I don't know how they're going to answer. I ask my guests every time, what role has relationships played or some variation on that? And they keep coming back every single time. Relationships are the key. Totally a lesson, totally a takeaway that I want all of you to come away from this with. Now, Norm, this has been fantastic. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. Let everyone know where they can find you, follow you. Where do you want them to be? One of the 100,000 people that are following you and building your audience this year.
Yes, because I only have 999,991. So anyway.
Not true.
First of all, if you're interested in sending me product, just hit me up either on any of my social or Norm at AMZ, so like Amazon, amz.club, or any of the social. Just let me know that you heard about it here, and love to do all of that. And again, it's not going to cost you anything. And the other thing is I've got a podcast. If you want to hear from a seller's side, what's going on, you want to become a better online e-com seller, it's Lunch with Norm. It goes live Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon Eastern Standard Time. But the podcast is on any of your favorite podcast platforms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And folks, that's all we've got for today. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the Partnership Unpacked podcast on Apple. And if you love what you heard today, please leave us a review. We love knowing what you think. Until next time, bye-bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Partnership Unpacked, hosted by Mike Alton and powered by AgoraPulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Be sure to leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us. And if you want to be part of our audience during live broadcasts, take a look at our calendar at agorapulse.com/calendar. Until next time.